So, what about dancing? You guys want to dance? I can't hear you. You guys want to dance? Okay, let's party now until 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's go. You guys are ready? Man, these guys are tired, man. You guys ready?
It's time to talk and tackle taboos around women's health. When we break the silence, we break the stigma. When we raise our voice, we raise our power. When we win our shame, we win our challenge. Let's talk about periods, women's bodies, sex. We need your voice, and we need it loud. Let's talk.
Jumbo, Nairobi. A very good afternoon, everyone. My name is Foliba Thibault. I'm a journalist and broadcaster for Al Jazeera English television. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here with you today for this very important session, which I hope will be the highlight of the Nairobi Summit on ICPD 25. Now, we're here today to talk. Before I tell you what we're going to be talking about exactly, let me tell you a story. It's one that happened very recently, in September of this year, in fact, not far from where we are today in southwestern Kenya. It's the story of a 14-year-old girl who got her first period while she was sitting in class. She didn't have any sanitary towels, so she stained her dress. According to media reports, her teacher then shamed her in front of all of her classmates by calling her dirty and sent her home. Later that day, feeling ashamed and humiliated, the young girl went home and took her own life. She was 14 years old. Her name was Jacqueline Chepgeno. In my nearly 20-year career as a journalist, no story has touched me more than that of Jacqueline's, but sadly, it's one of many about the struggle women and girls still face today when it comes to sexual and reproductive health. What happened to Jacqueline shouldn't happen to any other girl. It should inspire us to work toward ending all social stigma around women's health. So that's what we're here today to talk about as part of the inspiring Let's Talk series, which I'll get to in a moment. Now, 25 years ago, the groundbreaking International Conference on Population Development in Cairo adopted a program of action recognizing that reproductive health, women's empowerment, and gender equality are the pathway to sustainable development. Now, we've made some great strides since then, but the challenges remain and the numbers are here to prove it. For example, 1 in 3 women will face physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. 214 million women around the world want to prevent pregnancy but can't access modern family planning. And 33,000 girls every day are forced into child marriage. All too often, the stigma surrounding sex, menstrual hygiene, and reproductive health prevent individuals and communities from talking about these issues that are so crucial to women's empowerment. So we're here today to talk about how we can refocus on the goals that were set 25 years ago and fill the gaps. And more specifically, we're going to talk about how our creative industries, how we can use the power and influence of our creative industries to tackle stigma and taboo. And as I said, our session today is inspired by the Let's Talk series, an initiative launched by supermodel and philanthropist Natalia Vodianova in collaboration with her charity platform ELBI and the United Nations Population Fund. Now, before I give the floor to our host, Natalia, let me tell you a bit about this busy mother of 5. I first met Natalia while we were both serving on the president of the UN General Assembly's Gender Equality Group, and I saw firsthand the passion and the effort she brings to this important cause. Now, Natalia wears many hats. She is a supermodel, a philanthropist, a founder, an investor, an advocate, and a mother who still finds the time to do all the cooking at home. The goal of many of us working mothers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome our host for this session, Natalia Vodianova.
Thank you, Foley, for such a generous introduction. I don't live up to cooking, but I guess the rest does sound familiar. I want to welcome all of you and to thank you all for finding time at this incredibly busy conference to be with us today and to give you time to an hour and a half to this session. I hope you'll find it interesting. I'm sure you'll find it interesting. I'm probably going to be the most boring speaker, but you have some incredible activists who do what they do every day. For me, this cause is very, very important. I am a mother, and therefore that says it all. You know, I have a girl who's 13. I have 4 boys, one of whom is turning 18. So I went through a lot with my children when it comes to conversations that are kind of fun and can be difficult, but actually were not. Anyway, I'm not professional like Folly, so I have wrote my speech, and I hope you will still find it insightful. Speaking up has the power to bring light in the darkness. Talking about the very basics that give us confidence as girls and women is so important. We need to reach beyond this room and smash the taboo around sex education, shelter the stigma around periods, and tackle the inequality that holds back millions of women and girls from having a safe and healthy life. Encouraging the dialogue on the topic can revert the situation. It is a long path, but that's why we're here to get it going, to make this change happen. Society had made us numb to taboos and stigma and made it really made it a reality of everyday women's health and well-being, setting it to a standard much lower than it should be. Now the standard desperately needs to be raised to a higher level. And by talking, we can raise it. We must raise it because 70% of mothers considering their daughters unclean during their periods. It's not normal. 4 out of 5 girls in rural India using rags during their period. It's not normal. Women in prisons who are often forced to beg guards for basic hygiene products. It's not normal. Chainsaws, potato chips, and other unnecessary items, which are tax exempt in US and other countries, while period products aren't. It's not normal. Underage and forced marriage, it's not normal. 3 million girls being at risk of undergoing female genital mutilation, proposed to us as a tradition that we need to respect, is not normal. How often as women you say out loud that you are on your period freely at home or at work? How come we made so ashamed about the most natural event in our life as women? And even the biggest platforms in the world, Facebook and Instagram, are contributing to the stigma instead of breaking it. Their advertising policies are more and more often banning female self-care brands. So you can't advertise lubricant, which can be essential to women living with certain conditions like vaginal dryness, because it's too much of a sex product. However, Viagra is fine because we need it to procreate. The reality is you can't promote anything related to sexual health unless it's family planning or sexually transmitted disease. And this ends up reinforcing the taboo, leaving women in silence, growing their shame, all because of a policy. If we don't tackle this stigma and taboos around these issues, you see the insane and inhumane policies like the one that arrived on the desk of the government of Georgia State in US, asking not only to ban abortion, but to impose imprisonment and murder charge to women who obtain it. But despite the despair, I do have hope. And I'll tell you why. Last year, I stood at We Day UK in front of 10,000 children between 9 and 15 years old, and I talked about periods. In 5 minutes, which started with boo and we were all shouting period at the top of our lungs in the end of it. I must say, it was the highlight of my year when it comes to this work, and really just having them all there was shouting, period, boys, girls, everyone. It was really just brought tears to my eyes, and even my talk inspired some school projects led by the students who were there to help change the conversation in their own communities. But also I realized that a one-fits-all formula cannot work in breaking down stigma and taboo around women's health. What may work in UK may not be as successful here in Africa or in another region of the world. That's why it's important to include influential voices that can join conversations, people like traditional and religious leaders who have the power to change the way their communities think and talk about women's health, and issues that are critical to their empowerment. UNFPA has been experimenting with this in Niger, for instance, where they have included religious and traditional leaders in their efforts to end child marriage. Girls of the new generation, I feel, are fighters. They're more and more open of speaking up and fight for their equality. At the same time, I believe boys are more open to listen and to be themselves advocates for girls and equality. I have 4 boys and 1 girl, and it's paramount to me as a mother to see the future we are fighting for here sooner rather than later. The change starts back at home. Whether us as women not afraid to speak up and start uncomfortable conversations with our husbands of our needs and preferences, and with our children about health and sexual education and gender equality, then we'll have a real chance of more inclusive world, and that small actions together can make a big difference and these goals achievable. I'm hugely grateful to our hosts, the government of Kenya and Denmark, and to our friends and partners at the UNFPA. In particular, I would like to thank Alana Hermitage. I don't know if Alan is here. Yeah. She has supported us throughout all the journey of LB and Let's Talk, and especially in organizing today's event, and to Matt Jackson, who's been our lead of this session. Thank you, thank you. I will be back again later, more briefly, but enjoy.
Natalia, thank you so much for that powerful message. Thank you for your passion to this cause, your dedication, and for doing all that you do to help others. Thank you so much. Now, our next speaker is not just one of the most famous faces in the world of fashion, but also a woman who's not afraid to take on powerful forces to fight for what she believes in. In her native Poland, she's taking on the religious and political establishment to promote taboo and controversial subjects like sex education in school, risking being shunned in her own country. But despite the challenges, she presses on. I'm very pleased to introduce Anya Rubik.
Hello. Should I lift this slightly? My name is Anya, and I am sexually active. I know there should be no shame in saying this, but there is. In 2019, we are facing challenges unlike any other in human history. Civilization is accelerating extinction and altering the natural world in a pace faster than ever noted before. Our planet's very existence depends on the choices that we, as individuals and as a society, make. Now, how can we make the right decisions without a healthy, safe, equal society that can drive further positive change? The key to building a safe, equal, healthy society is sexual education. Now, without sex education, there is no equality. There is no understanding of oneself and others. Without sex education, we are exposed to sexual violence. Without sex education, we are defenseless against a propaganda that is trying to make us believe that and feel shame for who we are, what we feel, and who we love. Now, sex applies to every person in this room, and it applies to every person on this planet. Yet, it is still taboo in so many countries and places around the world. and that includes my home country, Poland. In Poland, there is no real sex education. We don't speak about sex at home. We don't speak about sex in relationships. And as a result, stereotypes around sexuality and sexual orientation are still deeply, deeply immersed in our society. Now, with the lack of knowledge comes fear. And that very quickly is followed by the lack of tolerance, by homophobia, transphobia, lack of understanding for other humans. In Poland, less than half of 18-year-olds can correctly answer questions around the anatomy and the functions of the male and female reproductive system. So you can imagine that when they grow up and they decide that they will have sex, it's like driving a car without a license and not even knowing where the brakes are. Teenagers know very little about methods of contraception. They know very little about STIs, about safe sex. STIs are actually in Poland on the rise. 60% of people living in Poland with HIV do not know that they have the virus. 70% of teenagers that are part of the LGBT community are thinking about suicide. Now, on top of all of this, my government, 3 weeks ago, started a procedure to ban any form of sex education for teenagers and put sex educators into prison for up to 5 years for speaking about safe sex. Let me just remind you that in Poland, you are allowed legally to have sex from the age of 15. So we live in the times of the absurd because we're bombarded with sex from everywhere, from advertising, from fashion, from film, from music. But at the same time, we are unable to speak about it in a beautiful, natural, and informative way. Now, 2 years ago, when I realized all this, and I read all the data, I decided to use my career and my voice to do something about this important problem in Poland. I founded an organization called SexEd-PL that raises awareness and educates on various aspects of sex education. Now, the challenge was huge because how do you shift awareness? How do you change attitudes? How do you make sex education relevant and tap into a teenager's reality? How do you take a subject that has been taboo for so many decades and make it relevant and approachable? And how do you go against a government that openly, on tape, says that sexuality education leads to pedophilia and is immoral? Now, I never considered myself an activist, but before I knew it, we created a community that was facing all these challenges. And let me tell you this today, that in those 2 years, SexEd-PL managed to address a lot of these challenges. And the solution was to understand that symbolic actions need to be replaced by solutions that can scale fast. Use personal stories to engage. We all have stories. Engage through social media. Now, social media nowadays is the main source of information and education for the youth. And we were able to harness that power in order to scale change. We kept all our visuals very dynamic, clear, and positive. And most importantly, we used the creative industry. We reached out through pop culture and music and fashion. Now, fashion is an industry that creates trends faster than any other industry in the world. And we wanted to create a trend for sex education. It was important to make it cool, desirable, for people to want to engage and become part of the movement. We created sustainable capsule collections with brands that not only started the conversation around all these subjects connected to sex education, like consent or safe sex, but also we put SexEd-PL suddenly on the streets of Poland. You had teenagers walking around with slogans that SexEd-PL created, starting those conversations. Now, our community and platform use also film and photography to engage the audience. We created collaborations with the Museum of Modern Art, doing a photography competition. We also were part of different film festivals. We were embraced by many amazing platforms such as Vogue or Netflix. We created 6 short episodes with Netflix around sex education. It is available on YouTube. Everyone can have a look. But the most important thing why we did this is because we wanted to introduce sex education into the everyday reality of every Pole. Now here is a short video that we will play. It shows you just a little bit of the spirit of Sex Ed PL, and all the footage that you will see was filmed during our campaigns, during meetings, during pop-up schools that we did with Sex Ed PL. Sex is an internal part of all our lives, no matter who you are or where you come from. Sex is part of our everyday reality, and sex education needs to be as well.
Książka Sex Edu dała nam wszystkim bardzo dużo tej praktycznej wiedzy.
Otworzyło nas na rozmowę o seksie.
Uczy nas, jak powiedzieć nie i jakie są granice, których nikt nie powinien przekraczać. Myślę, że ten cały ruch oddzielił tak zwane mity, miejskie legendy od tego, co jest prawdą.
Sex Ed PL takes the taboo out of sex, gives practical knowledge to keep you healthy and safe, creates an understanding of who we are while building a strong, engaged, tolerant society that stimulates further positive change. So in the last, thank you. So as you could see on the video, in the last year we published a book for teenagers. This is it right now. It became a bestseller. It sold over 160,000 copies right now. And from what I understand, each book is being read by between 4 to 5 teenagers. In the past 2 years, we created campaigns that were focusing on social media that spoke about consent, the sexuality of people with disabilities, STIs. We organized free STI testings, free Sex Ed PL buses that were going around Poland with labs. We spoke about teenagers' rights. We explained such notions as gender identity, sex orientations, supported the LGBT community, at the same time spreading tolerance in the Polish community. We educated also on ways to stay safe when meeting potential sexual partners on the internet. But most importantly, in the last 2 years, Sex Ed PL became a support platform for thousands who previously had none. Now in 2020, if we find the funding, we are planning a Sex Ed PL bus tour around Poland with educators creating pop-up sex education pop-up schools around the country. We are also changing our website, making it more interactive, releasing a membership program, planning other campaigns around the sexuality of people with disabilities. Now the truth is that for the last 2 years, I've done the work of the Ministry of Education. I have not received flowers or a thank you note yet, but they are threatening to lock me up, so I'm getting some attention. But I will not give up, and we are not afraid. And what I have learned in the last 2 years is that we are not hopeless, and our future is ours to shape. Thank you.
Anya, thank you so much. What a powerful and positive message to end on. Thank you for promoting sex education and for pushing on despite the challenges. It's all about patience and perseverance, of course, right? Okay, so we're now going to delve deeper into this issue and talk more about how we can use the power and influence of our creative industries to break down stigma and taboo when it comes to women's reproductive health and women's rights. So let me introduce our esteemed and diverse panel. We'll start with Kester Edwards, who's a longtime Special Olympic athlete and a member of the, please join us, and a member of the Special Olympics International Board of Directors and an inclusive designer. Thank you, please take a seat here. Also with us, the lovely Natalie B. Coleman, an Irish designer and entrepreneur whose commitment to design and fashion for advocacy has earned her worldwide praise. Welcome, Natalie. Also with us, Diana Serra, the energetic Diana Serra, co-founder and CEO of Be Girl, a social enterprise which focuses on empowering women through design and is changing the way girls think about their periods in Mozambique. Claudia Lamore is the Ghana-based CEO and founder of Glitz Africa magazine, which showcases and celebrates all that is African, and Claudia is also the UNFPA country ambassador for Ghana. And last but not least, Angolan supermodel Maria Borges, an international beauty icon who's been advocating for diversity in fashion to help all women believe in their value and strength. Welcome to you all. I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you, and I look forward to hearing about your insights and also your experiences in tackling stigma and taboo, your work, of course, but also your pledges, because we're here today to pledge, to take action to end stigma and taboo when it comes to women's reproductive health. And of course, because this is Let's Talk, you, our audience, is also going to be part of this conversation. We'll be asking you also to make a pledge and to share it on social media using the hashtag Let's Talk Pledges. Also, you can use UNFPA, Nairobi Summit. Don't forget to tag LB, okay? And Natalia Vodyanova, Nata Supernova. And so we'll be joining you and asking you about your pledges, how you think you can change the conversation. It can be something as simple as talking to your coworkers, to your male coworkers about periods, or something more specific like a policy or a campaign that you can start on your own to help us end the stigma and taboo around women's reproductive health. So, welcome. I'm very excited to be here with you. Now, let's start with you, Natalie, who I met on our ride yesterday from the airport. It's not every day, Natalie, that a fashion designer is approached by the United Nations to collaborate on a collection, but this is what happened to you. Tell us about your Sisters project, which has resonated with so many people around the world. What is it that inspired you?
Well, I got inspired firstly with the whole Repeal the 8th movement in Ireland, and I was involved a little bit in that and using clothing as a way of getting messaging out and using it as a political canvas, really. And then I started studying gender and women's studies. So I had a collection around menstrual health and raising conversations about that was called Guaranteed to Bleed. So even when I started to do that, and I told some of my friends who work in fashion, they were encouraging me not to do it. You know, they were saying,
why? Even people who work in fashion were telling you not to do it.
Yeah, because they said it would be bad for the brand, nobody would buy it. But I did it anyway. But even for me, I found myself being self-conscious, talking about periods openly. You know, so. When I think some of the guys from UNFPA saw the collection in New York and reached out to me, and we decided to do something at London Fashion Week in February, so we launched the Sisters collection. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of two-tiered. Will I speak about it a little bit?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. That's what we want to find out about a bit more.
So we had the mainline collection that was mostly really kind of, print was quite big in it, so it was print kind of addressing the issue of culture around how female sexuality is defined through design, and subverting kind of masculine imagery around that, using historical referencing to kind of change how we feel about shame and sexual shame and inherited historical shame. So I worked with a lot of women around where I'm from that were very craft oriented. So we used Cartman cross lace and hand knitting, embroidery, French knotting, print. So it was a way of kind of connecting with women all over the world that have used these very traditional female-centric skills to raise equity and families and independence.
And that's a really important point, isn't it? The fact that women have to come together. It's important that we come together and there's solidarity among us and support each other when we take on, these initiatives such as yours. And I think Claudia would agree with that, wouldn't you, Claudia? Tell us, Diana, sorry, I'll come to you, Claudia, in a moment, because I want to talk to you about the media and the role that we can play in changing the conversation. Diana, talking about how we women need to be supportive of each other and of initiatives such as this. Tell us about Be Girl, which produces reusable yet fashionable period underwear and provides them to schoolgirls in poor communities in Mozambique. There it is.
Of course.
Where did the idea come from?
Well, I am an industrial designer, and for anybody who knows what we do, we make products. So same as Natalie, we communicate through objects. So basically, the idea came out from the need that it was observed when I was working in Uganda. I was actually with Professor Jeffrey Sachs doing just literally putting panels on top of schools. Mm-hmm. But then when you start seeing that there was a lot of girls missing school, you start digging a little bit, like what's going on? What is it that you are in the farm instead of being in classes? And problems start surfacing, but you need to be curious and you have to dig deeper. And that's how I find out that having your period when you don't have the right means to really manage it can be a hinder for life.
Right.
And as an industrial designer, I did what I do. I invented something, and out of a mosquito net and an umbrella, I made a first prototype. But then, when you start exploring the design, you also fall in love with the idea to see this happening at scale. And that's how a project that it was just literally made in the back of a living room, sewing and all those things, turns out to be a social venture right now. Right. That it really digs into what is it that we see periods in such a negative way.
So what is it precisely? What do some of the girls that you speak to, what are some of the myths that you've heard about periods?
And myths are not just for girls in Africa. I'm Colombian, and also there we have really bad traditions. Like, for example, in my country, in the south, in the Amazons, when you change and you have your period, there's a very particular ritual in the Ticuna community where literally your hair is pulled at pieces. So this is not just something that happens in Nepal, in Africa, in Latin America. The fact that you cannot touch an animal, or that you cannot cook, or that you cannot be around men, that thing is literally, it crosses boundaries, like taboos and myths and misinformation. As somebody was saying yesterday, they don't have passports. They go across the countries and the boundaries. And it's really sad because we see that and we allow them to happen. But that's why designers and people with these skills, we do and we work with our tools to make sure that those things change.
Right. So Claudia, how do we fight the misinformation then that Diana is talking about? What role do you see us, the media, in particular the fashion media that you deal with, what role do you see us playing in changing the conversation, in changing the way women and men and everyone thinks about women's reproductive health?
Yeah, what I would say is media is very powerful. It's very influential, and it's very important, especially this time, for people, those of us in the media, or are in influential positions, or people look up to us because of the network and the power or the access or network that we have. It's important that we realize that the position that we sit and the number of people we are reaching through our platform and use that as a form to empower people and to educate people. So empowering the capacity of these people, influential people, people in media, to educate them, to build their capacity to understand the harmful practices, to understand all these issues that we have is really important. So, I mean, that's how I will put it. Like, it's really important that we understand where we sit, we understand the power and the influence that we have, and make use of that in a very positive way and break it down for people. Because when you go into communities, sometimes in the cities, people have different ways of getting information in the cities.
Right.
But where the real issues are in the communities.
Which brings me to a point that Natalia made in her speech, which is very important, is that there's not a 1-0 formula that can work everywhere, and you have to take culture and religion into consideration, especially for us Africans. When you go into these communities where there's no media, how do you then change the conversation? Is it by involving traditional leaders, as you said, religious leaders? Tell us about the experience in Ghana.
Definitely, because from our experiences, I mean, going into communities, it's very clear that coming from the city and talking to them, they find it hard to connect with you. It's all nice and good hearing it from you, but what is very clear is the power of the traditional leaders and faith leaders. So they connect very well with them. So building the capacity of these people and connecting with them in the community reaches them more. They can connect with something like that. And I mean, even for us in Ghana, I mean, even coming on this project, we came with traditional leaders, our queen mothers. Some of them are sitting nicely in the front row. They are queen mothers from Ghana. Faith leaders is really important for us that they build their capacity as well, because they are the people in the community bringing these people together and breaking down the taboo, and they can connect with them, unlike, coming just from, somewhere and just telling them what is in the book. Yeah.
Okay. I think that deserves a hand. Maria, you were born in Angola during the civil war in Angola, and you lost your mother at a very early age, at the age of 11. So tell us about what it was like for you growing up in Angola, and about your own experience when it comes to women's health, especially given the fact that you didn't have your mother around.
Correct. Good evening, motherland, and I'm so happy and it's honored to be in Kenya. Thank you so much for having me. And as you well said, it was difficult. I don't know how I ended up here, and it was a lot of work, of course. And thank God every day for to have this opportunity and be here and talk about my experience. So I grew up with a sister. She was younger as well. She was 15 years old. And at the age of 17, 18 years old, I realized that I do need to help her, because we were growing up together. Not seeing her as well find a way to make living or to put food at home, and I also need to do the work. I ended up doing modern career. But lately, I realized that there is some misinformation that my sister didn't have. Not mention that we didn't have mom around. So in today's, I fight to not only learn from my sister, but also share the experience with her. That's the key. I feel like she'll never be afraid because I'm younger than her. She also accepts me telling her what is right, what's the misinformation that she never had before. I feel like that makes us complete.
So what would be your message to a young African girl? And I know that many of them look up to you.
Correct.
When it comes to these issues, the stigma and taboo around periods, around reproductive health. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that not only the young African women's, but also this has to be men's as well, has to do the part. I feel like as a young, we all a lot, not my case anymore. I always feel afraid to talk about subject around older people, older than me. So I feel like
older than you, so there's a generational issue as well.
Yes, of course, always. They are the one who need to guide us, so we don't need to make any mistake again. They need to understand that we're here to grow together.
Right.
There is a lot of things going around being African and being young that you're not allowed to cheat all the people what you have learned that is good.
It
That's big issue.
It all comes back to the idea of culture and tradition having a huge role in this conversation as well. You spoke of men, and I think it's important that we have a man on our panel today, because it's extremely important to include them in our conversations, right?
Thank you.
So Kester has been on the front line in terms of tackling stigma and taboo through the Special Olympics movement. So what have you learned, Kester, to help us tackle stigma and taboo when it comes to sexual and reproductive health for women?
Well, I grew up in the Caribbean, not, very Trinidad and Tobago specifically, and there are a lot of the same taboo and cultural discussion, like I'm hearing you can't really cook when you're seeing your period. I remember my sister she had to don't go to work, so I used to have to go to the drugstore to get medication for her to settle her period aches. Then I was working in an institution as well for 9 years, which have boys and girls. And now that I'm having the discussion, I see where a lot of the young girls in the institution had some of these issues where they will have the period, and I guess they wouldn't know when it's coming, so they'll mess themselves. And that was sort of like, now I'm looking back at it, that's really a problem of the integrity, because within the structure they did not really have pads or like your invention of the panty, which I'm thinking that for the institution setting, this will be good for those, because it's financially maybe one of the reasons why they're not really having these products to really help them and that type of stuff. So I think what's really for the men to do is having more discussion. And you're right, it's a sort of a generation discussion coming from Trinidad and Tobago. You really can't have certain conversation with older folks. They put you in your place, like, what you're speaking to. So how do you have that conversation with the older heads to start educating, making it a more broader conversation?
Diana came with a pair of panties.
Yeah, and that's and I saw it and I was like.
And you came with a pair of shoes. Tell us about these shoes, and what's the meaning behind
Well,
it?
on the front line of Special Olympics, one of the things that growing up, I had shoes issues as well. My shoes had, you buy cheap shoes because you buy what you could afford, or you get hand-me-down. And my problem in the Caribbean, my shoes used to have a hole by a certain time, and I got to put cardboard within the level of when the rain is falling, depending on how much cardboard goes in the shoes to prevent my feet from getting to the ground. So that was one of the things that I grew up with. And then working in Special Olympics in 2015, I actually saw one of the African teams was having to change, they were subbing with the basketball team, and they had to be changing the shoes, and I was like, this got to stop. And a couple hours later, I met a gentleman who actually just started his shoes company, and the Special Olympics inspired him because he was paralyzed, and watching Special Olympics on TV as we was getting ready to go to Los Angeles inspired him, and we come up together to provide Special Olympics athletes with free pairs of shoes. So 2017 in Austria, we gave out 3,000 pairs. And in Abu Dhabi, we gave out 7,000 pairs. And the whole program actually called Size to Fit. And it sounds simple, but one of the things we were having was shoes from other companies, but really wasn't doing the work of actually.
So the idea really is to promote inclusiveness, to make them feel that they belong.
Much better.
Okay, and how do you then translate that when it comes to women's health?
I think, we know in a lot of development countries, females go through a lot of issues to even have simple things that we were speaking about. It's like a trade for trade. If young ladies can be having a pair of shoes, they're much more comfortable and much more confident to be a young woman. So I think if we can, 5 years from now, if we target women with shoes and panties, we can solve a
shoes and panties, the solution to all of our problems. Yay!
But really, when we can focus, and in 5 years from now, we'll see a big difference in the way how young women will carry themselves, because now they'll have, they can have on a white pair of shorts, right? Knowing that let's say, between a day or two, the period may come, they can be wearing one of those guys that...
Well, tell us about your panty a little bit more, Diana.
Okay.
You're obsessed with the panty.
Not only they match in color, it wasn't that intentional. Well,
they actually look good. Because usually these, you know, when you're on your period, you wear your ugly panties, right? These are some pretty nice ones.
And that's intentional. The fact that these panties are colorful is intentional. Everything we do is based on celebrating the girl's body in her period. So imagine a panty, imagine like your whole life being told that you're like menstruating is dirty, that you know you're cursed and all this like very, very harmful comments. And then for the same reason, you get something as beautiful as this panty. It's being celebrated. So in our work, we said that everybody has the right to own beautiful things because that's what we do through design. That's why you're holding so proudly those shoes, because they're made with love. They're made for somebody to have them, own them, and feel that they can reach for the stars. No matter if it's a panty or a pair of shoes, like everybody deserves good stuff. And that's what we do in B-Girl, either with the panties, with the clock, with everything we do, is democratizing the access to good things, good designs, because something that I really want to have everybody clear here is that like, there's nobody poor. That thing doesn't exist. It's people with limited access to certain resources, but nobody's poor. So that's something that we really need to have very clear in our heads, because when we're doing access and when it comes to these things, like we always need to think about like it's lack of access, not lack of aspirations.
Okay, Diana, tell us a bit more about how design and not Diana, sorry, Natalie. I was coming to you, Natalie. Apologies. Thank you, Diana, for your passionate speech there. Natalie, tell us about how fashion design can change, can have a role in how we think and talk about women's health issues.
Well, fashion, I think, reflects cultural perceptions and values and norms. So for me, I think it's just starting conversations. Like was mentioned earlier about media and fashion, and I think because of social media now, the kind of role of who the gatekeeper is has changed. So through what we did, it was really engaging with press as well, so that it was put out in social media and people were reacting to that. So it's just more about conversations and conversations happening through clothes. It's like lots of people have got in touch with me, and even down to when we were working with the women who were making the lace, you know, even how changing from Cartmore Cross lace, which is unique to where I'm from, these women that were making like beautiful pieces but were clitorises and ovaries and, you know, the reproductive organ instead of religious kind of emblems, which is what they normally do. So they were starting to talk about that and even talk about their own bodies and and speaking about them in a very mechanical way as well. So it's all about conversation.
All about conversation. Claudia, I know you recently visited an obstetric fistula center. Tell us about that. What was it like, and what did you see and hear from the women who were there? Because that's also an issue, isn't it?
It is a huge issue, and it's such, you know, a low point. Me going there and coming out and going home, it took me, God, like days to get over what I saw over there. So the only crime these women have committed is they became pregnant. And they wanted to bring a life into this world. And through that process, because of lack of access to health, as we all know with fistula, they've had this condition. And they don't have, I mean, it costs money to get it fixed, something that can be fixed. I saw women that have been living with this condition for over 30 years, 40 years, and they have been outcast because their husbands don't obviously want to be with them. Communities are saying they are witches. Families don't want to be with them. They can't stay in cars. Basic things that we do, we just get in and out of taxis. We just get into rooms and we don't even look at them. They can't do these things because of the stigma attached to them. They've been so, you know, put aside from community. communities. So it's really, even working on projects like that, raising funds and making sure, together with UNFPA, to make sure these women are getting their surgeries done, and to see the joy on their faces. Some are as young as 17, living with this, and some as old as 60 years that's been living with this for years. It's something very empowering to see. And even bringing them back into the community is also a huge thing, because they've been outcast for years. How do they go back into the communities? How do they get jobs done? How do people accept them back into the communities? So it's a huge issue, and even building their confidence, and that's why I'm also really passionate about this you're doing, because this is something that can help not just period, but women with fistula as well, because they are leaking as well. So this is something that can go across board as well with women with fistula. But just let me quickly also land that when we're talking about generational issue as well, people that are partner, those of us who live in Africa, or those of us who partner with people in Africa, one thing we shouldn't forget is how we can partner with people and build capacity of people who are in leadership role in communities. Exactly. Because the thing is, it's not that they are saying that these are taboos. They don't know anyway. This is what they know. This is how they grew up. This is the thing they know. We are saying it's taboo and stigma.
But they don't know, because it's all they've lived with.
This is all they know. Yeah. So educating the people that have the power to influence in the community is really important. So they can then know that, okay, these are harmful. Oh, I didn't even know marrying somebody at 15 years was a crime. Exactly. Now you've empowered me. You've told me I can now go and talk to 20 more teenagers in their communities or their parents and tell them this is wrong.
And this is what UNFPA has been doing, in fact, in countries like Niger, where they're involving traditional leaders and religious leaders going into communities and involving them in their work, in their efforts to end child marriage. Forward. Yes, that's a big issue, actually, a big step, is that you can't exclude others from the conversation. No. Men, religious leaders, traditional leaders. Now, coming back to our theme today, which is really the fashion industry and creative industries, how they can help. Maria, I know that your experience, today you're one of the most recognizable faces in the world, but you're in an industry that hasn't always been welcoming of women of color. Yeah. So tell us about how you overcome that, and also your message to young girls who want to be like you. And do you think there is hope now in the fashion industry that things are changing?
Correct. I think hard work pays off, right? Doesn't matter which color you are, hard work pays off. That's my answer. Then have a purpose, See what's your history, where you come from, where you're going. That can definitely change the game. And that's the industry that has voice. We saw like Supermodel, and I admire them all. And Natalia, she's incredible. I follow women like that. After they have career, they have opportunity, they open doors, now they inspire the universe. Not only her country, not only her continent. That's what I'm gonna do. That's what I wanna be for Africa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, it's been such a great conversation. I know we could go on for hours and talk about this, but we've got to move on because we've got other things to look forward to today. But it's been so inspirational to hear all your stories and your experiences, to hear about your shoes and your panties. And I know you two have a thing going already. A certain collaboration is in the works there, I can see. Thank you so much. Now, before I bring back Natalia, I'm going to ask you to tell you about your pledges, because we're here today to pledge, of course, to end stigma and taboo, right? So I'm going to start with my own pledge, which is I'm pledging to provide a period pack to all the girls of my foundation, Elira L'École, which is based in Guinea, promoting education there, with a period pack that would include pads, sanitary towels, and underwear in case of emergency. And I also pledge, and I think this is really important, to encourage my sons, I have 3 sons, and my male colleagues to view periods and menstruation as a natural physical process rather than a source of shame and embarrassment. That's my pledge. What is your pledge?
So my pledge will be for the focus of women on intellectual disability, to have the right of not just shoes, but just the right to have dignity in their own community, because women with intellectual disability face much more discrimination in the communities and understanding of who they are. So I pledge to help bring some understanding more. Maybe we walk together and talk together and hopefully this is my pledge.
Let's walk together and talk together. Thank you, Kester, for your pledge. Natalie B. Coleman, what is your pledge?
I pledge to work with the provision centres where I'm from and with the Cartmore Cross lace workers to evolve the lace and to build a community around that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your pledge. Diana?
Well, as B-Girl, we have a really bold but achievable pledge. We are going to reach 20,000 adolescent girls and boys with the very basic information about the menstrual cycle, because body literacy is the very fundamental step to be able to have agency and a power of choice. So that's our pledge.
Yay. Claudia, what is your pledge?
Yeah, so advocacy is something that I've been doing for years, but just even coming here and listening to the model from Poland, I think what I want to add to my pledge is to do more regional pop-up with schools and people in the communities to do more about sexual education, and also to see how we can get some of these materials to them as well. So I think that's going to be my pledge, and also continually raising funds and partnering with people to for the cause of UNFPA in my country.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Maria, what is your pledge today?
Well, I would say if water is not for free in this universe, right information should be for free.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Before I bring back Natalia, let me just, something really important that you said, and you talked about people with disabilities, and I wanted to touch on this. What about the forgotten women, the invisible ones? I know you were involved with the Homeless Period Project in Ireland. And often we forget about these other women, the homeless women or the women in prison. It's also very important, I think, that they are included in our initiatives and what we achieve, because very often they're forgotten about, aren't they, Natalie?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a massive problem in Ireland at the moment, homelessness, and for women who are just trying to find somewhere to store their sleeping bag, let alone find sanitary towels. And it all comes back to, as everybody was advocating today, education. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for a remarkable conversation. It's been really interesting talking to you all. Thank you for your pledges, and we look forward to hearing about what you've achieved in a year from now, because we're going to take you to task, of course, right? All right, thank you. All right, Natalia, shall join me so we can ask our audience about their pledges, of course, but also if you have any questions or remarks that you want to share, questions that you want to ask our panel, perhaps, feel free to do so, right?
I also want to draw some results from the last, from the recent, it's not working?
Try this one, try this one.
Oh, yes, it works. Okay. Yes, so I wanted to draw your attention to some other pledges that's been made and realized since the recent Let's Talk events that started in 2008, a year ago. So we had some really exciting pledges. PNG Turkey has pledged and already distributed 750,000 sanitary products to underprivileged girls, and also provided also information around self-care that is really vital, how to use it, and sexual education as well, basic sexual education, because it is Turkey. And then Parsons School of Design, they have used user-led design in order to create a new type of pad, reusable pad, that was then distributed to refugees. This was great. Then through the partnership with UNFPA Special Olympics and Shakhtar Donetsk, which is a Ukrainian football club, they started a girls' football team for the first time, which is really cool. And also with Special Olympics, they now do unified They play unified, they play football games, and UNFPA, of course, their role is to come and talk to the girls about importance of reproductive health and sexual education and so on. Beautiful pledge. Vogue Turkey released its first ever non-touch-up issue, celebrating women, celebrating us just as we are, beautiful, confident, powerful, but with wrinkles and different shapes and the way we come. So beautiful as well. Vogue Poland and Special Olympics are very, very active with us. We're very grateful to David Evangelista for his continuous support and really galvanizing Let's Talk and using and really connecting with people. So he connected with Vogue Poland, and they created a female volleyball event at the end of August 2019. And then Vogue Poland also published an article highlighting the female athletes, the volleyball female athletes of Special Olympics, who are breaking stigma in Poland around women with disabilities, beautiful, strong, and this is wonderful. And last but not least, Flow, the largest female health platform, has pledged to raise up to $1 million to provide sanitary products and also reproductive health and sexual education to girls and women in India.
Amazing.
I have a pledge to make as well. This is inspired by Let's Talk and very much inspired by Anya's work. I'm so grateful that you're back with us again and you're telling your story. Every time it's fascinating because I think you are an incredible activist in the field, and I hope you get a lot of attention after this inspiring talk. And I myself, I pledge next year to try to find a partner for you in Russia, so you bring your important work and your important know-how now of what you've been able to achieve to my country, because I think it's vital there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, you have a challenge for our audience, right?
Well, these are some ambitious maybe pledges, but the truth is, a simple thing like having conversation with your children when you get back home, or talking at work just about what you've learned, and indeed just questioning yourself, why on earth women have to carry period products in their bags everywhere when we don't carry soap and toilet paper, and isn't that just ridiculous? And talking maybe to your senior team about it, and trying to address that and saying, I'm a woman or a man, and I want that for my colleagues, that we are sort of period inclusive company, or whatever else you want to do, but it can be the smallest pledge, even just to share the information about today and to share our hashtag. So please support us so we can.
Does anyone have a pledge
working.
that they want to make now? See, a couple of hands coming up. Yeah, here.
Okay.
So, hi everyone, I'm Boglarka, I'm from Hungary. I also work together with the Let's Talk UNFPA organization with Alana and Natalia on some of the events. We had a very successful one in Moldova lately. And I just want to, because Natalia mentioned it, also pledge that I will help Anya to find a partner in Hungary, and we should talk about sexual education, hopefully in Turkey too. Let's say that's the second step.
Great, thank you so much for your pledge. Thank you. Anyone else? Alana Armitage, where are you? Would you like to say something? Alana is UNFPA's Eastern Europe Regional Director.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and thank you, Natalia, as always, for just being so inspiring. I guess my pledge would be just to continue supporting Natalia and the Let's Talk movement. It all started almost 2 years ago now in a small cafe in Paris when we met for the first time, and I heard about this amazing work she was doing, and we joined forces, and it's just spreading like wildfire, I would say. So my pledge is to continue supporting you, to convene these amazing people, connecting everybody here who is so, I don't know, just so inspiring. And I think getting the word out, as someone said earlier, the fashion is setting the trend. So you are setting the trend. You're making rights and choices a trend. So that is what we want to continue doing. I want to thank Matt, because Matt was fundamental in helping us organize this session. I know he's been working for many months on this, so you know he's not saying too much today, but he's an amazing guy, and I want to thank him also for everything he's done to organize this event.
Thank you. Thank you. Another pledge in the back here, in the back row.
I think it's working. Hi everyone, I'm Kaushal Ranasinghe from Sri Lanka. I'm working for LGBT community in Sri Lanka. So my question, it's not a pledge, but it's a question. My question is, are men getting period? Are men getting period?
Meaning, do they understand period?
Okay, I will explain this.
Are they getting periods?
I will explain this.
That's very interesting, because there was a commercial recently just touching on that.
Okay.
Go on.
My best friend, transgender man, and he getting period. But in Sri Lanka, I mean, more than the women, they getting, I mean, discrimination and stigma because they getting period. They are men, but they getting period. So we have to think about that, and we have to consider about that. So this is my comment. Yeah, thank you very much.
Do any of our panelists want to say something about that?
We have another pledge here.
No?
We have a pledge here.
Another pledge.
Okay, so my name is Queen Awindo from Ghana, and I'm very happy that we have a very good Ghanaian representation here because Claudia is on the panel. Last year, during the World Menstrual Health, in partnership with Ghana Education Service, I was made one of the ambassadors, and I'm happy to be part of this Let's Talk program. I'm going to partner with Claudia, of course, with UNFPA, and government is represented here with our lead. So we're going to discuss how we're going to take this out into our communities. And of course, we are going to engage with the traditional leaders, because it's come up severally that we cannot go into the community without them. And so I commit to partner with Claudia and UNFPA to engage with the traditional leadership in Ghana so we can talk this.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. There are a lot of pledges. I can see so many hands up. Let's see. Let's try over there in the back, and then we'll come back to this side in a minute.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Shukri Mohammed. I'm from Kenya. So, I'm from an organization that deals with more basketball, and also IRAP, it's called Ambassadors for Youth and Adolescent Reproductive Health Program. So what we do with our organization, we usually hold tournaments and basketball leagues, where after the game, there's that like 5 to 10 minutes talk. So we usually engage the teams, mostly girls, to talk to them about their health issues, mostly. And also, that is during the holidays. And also, during the school calendar, we also have leagues for girls, that is aged between 18 to 25. And also, after these leagues, we usually, after the games, we usually give them the talks about
So engaging with the girls.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for your pledge. Really appreciate it. We're going to leave it now. But I know there's so many of them. Guys, we've got to move on. We'll come back to the pledges. Let's try.
I'm sure all you have social media. Please use the hashtag Let's Talk pledges, and then we will see each other. I promise to repost every single pledge that is made on my Instagram with my audience, and I'm sure that many of you who follow can do the same, and like that we can really we can make the ripple go very, very far. Thank you very much for your activism and your pledges. Yeah.
So we can keep the conversation going, as Natalia says, on social media. Tweet out your pledges, put them on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Let's Talk Pledges is a hashtag. Don't forget to tag LB, UNFPA, and Natalia Supernova, because she will, of course, then share it with her 5 million or how many followers she has in the world. Thank you so much. A few millions, right? Thank you so much for that. All right, our next two guests are here for a very special announcement. You can go. Thank you. Our next two guests are here for a very special announcement. They're heavyweights in the fashion and creative industries and are trailblazing new ways to tackle stigma and taboo surrounding women's reproductive health. Please welcome actor Shin Koyamada from the Koyamada Foundation. Also with us, Marie Cluzel from the Muna Project and Brooke van Niekerk from the powerhouse of fashion LVMH. Join us. Let's start with you, Shin. Okay.
Well, first of all, nice to be in Kenya and Africa for the first time. It's a very nice country. Thank you for welcoming me to Kenya. Before I begin, I'd like to say thank you to Roy from UNFPA Asia Pacific Regional Office to invite me to this event. Without you, I wouldn't be at the ICPD event. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you, though, Roy. Royce, thank you. My background, to briefly explain my background, I am from Hollywood, Los Angeles. I'm originally from Japan. My profession is actor and producer. I was in a movie called The Last Samurai with the Tom Cruise. I was one of the leading actors with the Tom. Well, thank you. That was a long time ago. So, but I still keep in touch with actors and crew. And after that, I got involved with the Disney Channel in the United States. I had my own movie called The Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior. Then I've been on a lot of Disney Channel shows in the US, which was broadcasted worldwide. So I have a lot of kids followers around the world. Besides my profession, my wife and I started our foundation called the Koyamada International Foundation, simply called KIF. And we have a 6 global agenda that we focus on: youth leadership, empowering women and girls, assisting disaster relief, building people-to-people exchange, ending extreme poverty, and advancing sustainable development. So what I do, my personal experience of women's empowerment is actually I empower my wife. I have my wife is a TED Talk speaker, and she loves speaking. She loves speaking before a lot of people, and she talks at the United Nations. But we have a lot of conversation. We have open conversation about women's empowerment, the leadership, because that's one of our programs, main program. So I believe women's empowerment should come from, if you're a husband, if you're a brother to your sister, if you have daughters, I believe women's empowerment to openly to talk about reproductive health and so many things, it should come from the family. So this is something I do with my wife. She's Colombian. I saw a Colombian guest. She's from Bogota, so I all know all about the Colombian culture. And I'm also an envoy of the U.S. State Department representing the U.S. government. So I do in education and culture. So I go around the world and talk about education and culture on behalf of the U.S. State Department. Also, I'm a national board member of Sister Cities International, which was founded by U.S. President. We have over 2,000 partners in 140 countries. So I'm pledging to open our national chapter, KIF Kenya, right there, Jer. He's actually a professor at this university, so I'm sure he will talk about reproductive health and sexual health at his university. Second things is to create this program, self-defense program for underprivileged girls. With my martial arts background, I hear a lot of stories from different NGO organizations. Underprivileged girls and women, they're being taken advantage of. Coming with my martial arts background, we will educate these girls to defend themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really great pledge. I like that, helping girls, defend themselves. Thank you, Shane. All right, up to you now. The two of you.
Hi. It's a very special day, for me today, because it's the first time, and in that place, in Nairobi Summit, that we show our Muna project. So let me introduce Muna. Muna is a free sanitaries dispenser for offices or any public places. Muna has been, I hope you can see it. No, come back. Sorry. Muna has been designed in a completely eco-friendly mindset. That means that it's made of recycled materials, and it contains only organic 5-star quality products, both pads and tampons for different flows. Very easy to catch in. As you can see, it's not a very usual shape for a sanitary dispenser, and it was also our target, is to make a design object very relevant in any place, in any toilet room, even in luxurious environment. Muna is also a product completely eco-friendly, is a design object. Muna is very simple to set up, is very simple to use, is very simple to refill. What we want to make is to make this an evidence, Muna, as an evidence in any toilet rooms. Because it's an evidence today to find sanitaries, free sanitaries in toilet rooms, because you find free toilet papers and free soap, as said Natalia. Muna is our very first step of our mission. And the mission we have today is to raise the standard for women's health. And Muna will be our very first step for that. I will read and share with you our manifesto. What does mean raise the standard for women's health? We stand for female sanitary products as an essential, not a luxury. We stand for women's health as a right, not a nice to have. We stand for free pads and tampons in public places as a standard, not an exception. We stand for menstruation as a natural function of our body, not a shame. We stand for period to be a richness of the human beings and not a poverty. We stand for all women in the world to achieve a new health standard. So, raise the standard research and join the standard revolution. It's very clear for us with this, it will be the packaging of our pad. And our message is, this isn't just a pad. It's the proof female hygiene is a human right. Raise the standard with us. Today, with our packaging and products, we will give the opportunity to women that will receive this product to give back, sustaining charity programs, both locally and globally, and to give back once again. And women too, and men too, of course, not only women. Today, we have a great opportunity to assess our product proposal and our Muna proposal with LVMH Group. And I turn to Brooke that will explain in which way.
Thank you, Marie. It is my absolute pleasure to be here today as the LVMH representative. LVMH has always been committed to the causes of women, and we've never hesitated to take the lead in certain subjects. We are very thrilled and very keen to be contributing to the changing of mindsets around the stigma and taboo, specifically on the topic of menstruation. We know that this subject is something that prevents women all around the world from moving freely, being able to educate themselves, being able to work, or even start their own businesses. And so we know that this stereotype has to be fought. And whilst it is a cultural fight, it is something that can start in the work environment. So companies have a responsibility to set a standard, to set an example, and to help shift these mindsets. And so LVMH will be partnering with Muna, and we will be offering and rolling out for 6 months the launch of the Muna dispensers over our group's Maison sites. We have 156,000 employees, 73% of which are women. And really what we want to do is we want to test the launch, gain some insights before we do a full-scale rollout. What we want to do is raise the standard. And we want people to understand that free sanitary goods and tampons and pads are not a luxury. As mentioned already, and they say if you say things 3 times, it'll stick. Toilet paper and soap are for free. They are essentials. If you walked into a bathroom and you had to pay for those, you would think that was strange. So for women across the world that do not have access to feminine hygiene products, sanitary pads and tampons, this is an absolute necessity that we change this mindset. And for the women that can benefit from Muna, where they can get these products for free, we encourage them to make personal donations to associations that can provide support to less well-off countries where women struggle to have access to these products. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies, and thank you for your commitment and LVMH's support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Let's Talk is, of course, not just about talking, even though we've done a lot of it in the past hour and a half. It's also about celebrating some incredible people, and today we're giving a special award to a young woman who is changing the conversation around menstruation in the UK and the stigma associated with it. Amika, who can't be with us, unfortunately, here today, but she did send a video. And a special thanks to Flow, the world's largest female health app, who are supporting this award to Amika. And so I'd like to introduce now Anna Targonskaya from Flow to say a few words about their work.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be here today. And I would like to thank Natalia Vadianova and LB for inviting Floor to participate in this session. We are honored to be the partner for this award and are sure that Amika George is the best choice for this. We believe that it is highly important to break the existing taboos around periods, and every day we're working to help women all over the world better understand their bodies and how do they work. Flow is the world's leading health application powered by artificial intelligence and used by more than 100 million women globally. Please, next. Flow is a one-stop solution for women during their entire reproductive life cycle, from first periods to menopause, from pregnancy to young moms. At Flow, we believe that women's health deserves much more attention and action. It's critical to raise global awareness around this issue and to connect science, clinical practice, and everyday life. Next. Flow has initially started as an easy-to-use period tracker and has evolved into a comprehensive health coach that aims to significantly improve the health and well-being of women. Next. Flow provides personalized and evidence-based health insights on key women's health topics based on the logged symptoms and reproductive goals. Flow has developed a series of chatbots or health assistants aimed to raise awareness on the most common reproductive health topics. We are proud of our community section, which is a safe and unique space for anonymous discussions, where women can openly talk and support each other. Quality of information that we spread is paramount for us. We have established 3-step quality assurance for all the pieces of content in the app. All the materials that our content managers initiate are developed together with in-house medical doctors, then reviewed by medical board that consists of over 40 experts. Afterwards, all the materials are reviewed by experienced editors for cultural relevance, and only after that the content is delivered to our users. On the top of that, we are proud to have such prominent content partners as UNFPA and European Board and College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, who help us develop special content materials and bring their expertise. It is well known that women's health has been under research for too long, and to drive its study, FLO has partnered with prominent research universities, medical schools, and associations to bring more evidence-based knowledge to the area. Being an app that connects around periods over 100 million women all over the world, we couldn't stay away from a huge problem of period poverty in India. Nearly 23% of girls in India dropped out of school at the onset of menstruation. Period stigmas and taboos, a lack of period products, wash facilities, limited menstrual health and hygiene education are all contributing factors. But this problem is solvable. Next, please. We know how to manage periods in a healthy way. We just need to share our knowledge and ensure that girls have access to period products. Doing so will bring all kinds of benefits, improving health, giving kids more time at school, empowering women, and giving hope for a brighter future. That's why FLO, LB, Life, and Procter & Gamble's period brands, Always and Whisper, have partnered in a fundraising campaign to help ensure that girls in rural India have access to the period education, period products, and support they need to stay at school and stay confident. Here's how the campaign works. FLO educates users about the challenges girls face in India because of the periods and encourages people to support Indian girls with a donation. LB provides the donation technology to enable users to donate and transfer the funds to Life. Procter & Gamble's periods brands Always and Whisper donate period products and educational materials to Life. Life users donations of FLO users and Always and Whispers donations to provide menstrual education and distribute period products to girls and their communities in rural India. And FLO commits for 2020 to raise awareness about contraception methods among 5 million women from 18 to 44 through launching the dedicated educational course in FLO app. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Amaka George? Okay. All right, so thank you very much, Flo, for supporting this award and for your commitment. Now, I'm extremely excited to introduce our next guest, our final act for today. She rose to stardom simply by using her words, poetry, and insights into important issues of her time. She's a performer, host, activist, workshop leader. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the World Poetry Slam champion, Kenya's very own Frequency.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hey. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, okay, I didn't know if the microphone wasn't working or something. My name is Mwende Katwiwa, otherwise known as Frequency, and I'm here to do 2 short performances for you today. I myself am a queer, gender-fluid Kenyan immigrant who lives between the United States and Nairobi. To be gender-fluid or non-conforming is to really move through the world unsure how you're going to be received from moment to moment. When I find myself clothed in femininity, I subject myself to all that comes with being perceived as a cisgender woman under patriarchy. When I shroud myself in masculinity, my being is at risk for being targeted for its refusal or its inability to conform to gender norms. For the purposes of this event, I wanted to share a poem which is a personal exploration of attempting to reclaim my femininity in the face of sexual violence. It's a personal story about re-entering femininity after an assault where I was targeted for daring to express it. It starts off how it always does. Me, staring in the mirror, looking at my body, or at least what I've convinced myself is my body, despite what this world reminds me each time I walk out of my home. Since that night, seeing my skin has long since become a foreign thing, but tonight I have worn clothes that allow this holy body to spill like communion, an offering at the altar of femininity. I whisper to myself that I'll be okay, that tonight, no matter how much this body looks like honey, I will avoid the sting of bees. That no matter how sweet I may look to taste, no man will think to make meal of my flesh, and in that moment, I know I'm a liar. That a person claiming themselves has never been enough to keep catcalls from echoing in the hollows of their broken-in body. They tell me to just smile, to brush off their statements, to be kind as if I'd rather not just be safe. Femmes and women are told we are lucky to get the attention of wolves who have wrapped themselves in the skin of masculinity to hunt. They say no matter how their words or hands bruise our bodies are lucky to have received the recognition in the first place. They say we must have wanted it, otherwise why would we dress this way? Why would we be shaped this way? Why would we even dare to be born? I was so young when I learned that my body was a liability, that when my skin stretched into breasts and hips, I lost the right to translate what my body language was saying. I learned how so many who were claimed by masculinity know not the language of appreciation, only of demands and expectation. Have you ever seen how quickly a cat call grows teeth and becomes a bite of a festering wound? How a hey Mrembo, let's talk turns to a fuck you bitch, you weren't that cute to begin with. How a walk home suddenly becomes a race to stay alive and whole. How a body that was once a home is now a prison, myself the jailer, unsure which key will set me free. Been locked up so long, I don't know if I could even recognize freedom's taste. It would be the sanctuary that I was built to be. See, it starts off like it always does, with a person's body being blamed for simply being. When attacked, we are taught to search every inch of our own selves for blame, forced to twist our tongue into apologies, wrap ourselves in guilt until we suffocate beneath this weight. Yes, it starts a way that it always does. But one day I know we will rewrite this story and the ending. One day I will leave my home and return with the same smile I conjured in confidence. One day my body will stop being a battleground for a war I never enlisted for but have been fighting every day of my damn life. One day I will be able to stop writing poems like this. I'll be able to speak of sweet honey and the sting of bees and be describing a walk I felt safe enough to take instead of using metaphor. I will no longer fear the night or the daytime or others or myself. I will walk through this world like I have just as much right to be here because I do, because I always have, because I always will, and it has never been up to you to decide or impose on my freedom with your gods or your laws. This here is a divinity of my own making. No heckling from heretics will ever be heard. Give praise accordingly, or you will be never welcomed in this sanctuary.
Amazing.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Ricky, I was originally invited to share one poem, but I could not come to an international forum without sharing this other one. It takes specifically a look at Black motherhood in the context of the United States. I've spent the last few years there doing organizing work with the Movement for Black Lives, which is colloquially known as Black Lives Matter. I also used to work at Women with a Vision in New Orleans, which is a reproductive justice agency, where there I learned about the reproductive justice framework, which considers a person's right to choose to have children or to not have children, but also centers their right to parent the children that they already have in safe and healthy environments. I argue that Black Lives Matter is fundamentally a form of reproductive justice, and the writing of this next poem, The Joys of Motherhood, allow me to see these connections. If you want to hear more about those connections, I did a TED Talk called Black Life at the Intersection of Birth and Death that goes a little bit more into detail about them. I've always wanted to be a mother. Growing up, I heard all about the joys of motherhood. I used to dream of watching my womb weave wonder into this world. See, I knew I was young, but I figured it couldn't hurt to start planning for something so big, so early. But now, I'm 28 years old, and I don't know if I have what it takes to stomach motherhood in the United States. Over the years, America has taught me more about parenting than any book on the subject, has taught me how some people give birth to babies and others to suspects. It has taught me that this body will birth kin who are more likely to be held in prison cells than to hold college degrees. There is something about being Black in America that has made motherhood seem complicated, seem like I don't know what to do to raise my kids right and keep them alive. Do I tell my son not to steal because it is wrong or because they will use it to justify his death? Do I tell him that even if he pays for his Skittles and sweet tea, there will still be those in the neighborhood that will watch him and see a criminal before child, who will call the police and not wait for them to come? Do I even want the police to come? Too many Sean bells go off in my head when I consider calling 911. I will not take it for Oscar granted that they will not come and kill my son. So we may have gotten rid of the nooses, but I still consider it lynching when they murder black boys and leave their bodies for 5 hours in the sun, as a historical reminder that there is something about being black in America that has made motherhood sound like morning. Sound like one morning I could wake up and see my son as a repeat of last week's story. Sound like I could wake up and realize the death of my daughter wouldn't even be newsworthy. You can't tell me that Sandra Bland was the only black woman whose violence deserved more than our silence. What about our other dark-skinned daughters in distress whose deaths we have yet to remember? What about our children whose lives don't fit neatly between the lines of your genders? Apparently, nothing is a protector if you come out of a body that looks like this. There is something about being black in America that has made motherhood sound like something I'm not sure I look forward to. I have written too many poems about dead black children to be naive, about the fact there could one day be a poem written about my kids. But I do not want to be a mother who gave birth to poems. I do not want a stanza for a son, nor a line for a little girl, nor a footnote for a child who doesn't fit into this world, no. I do not want children who will live forever in the pages of poetry, yet can't seem to outlive me. Thank you.
What an amazing performance. That was incredible. Thank you so much, Frequency. What an amazing performance. Thank you for being with us here today. Natalia, please join me, and we're going to thank everyone, the audience, for taking part in our conversation today in this Let's Talk. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for trusting me with your event.
Foley, thank you so much. Mawende, thank you for this incredibly strong performance. We have so many fights to fight, and we can start here. We can start with the pledges we made today, and with this conference, with this summit. And I think that words that we heard today should inspire, certainly inspired me to do more, to be less blasé about other people's life, because you can't help but thinking about yourself. We are all essentially selfish, but only by coming together we can be reminded that we are not selfish at all, And let's help each other, and thank you so much. Thank you, Foley, you've been incredible at leading this and making us all feel at home. Thank you. Thank you all, it's finished.
Nobody wants to go. It was so good, nobody wants to go. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, it's been our pleasure. Have a great evening, thank you.